Hello and welcome to LGPRo's Expert Insights. Today I'm joined by Max Hardy, who is no doubt familiar to many of you. Max, you are a force in the world of deliberative engagement, and that is indeed the topic we are speaking about today. Great to have you with us, Max.
It's great to be here, Giulia.
So currently our council staff are becoming quite familiar with this term and this concept, and would be at different stages in their planning. I'd love to know what are some of the things that are important for them to be thinking about at this point in time.
What's interesting is that councils are at very different points in their journey. Some have got policies and a clear idea about how they're defining deliberation and also how they might be going about it. But I think there's also a fair bit of confusion, or at least exploration, about what does this term mean? What does it look like in practice? How can we do it in a way that actually meets the requirements of the Act? And how do we make it useful for our planning and not just a ticker box exercise? I think that's kind of, some of the things that we're very much conscious of at the moment.
In your experiences, you've been across the world talking about this topic. So I'm curious as to what are some key points that you could draw upon that might assist our members as they navigate some of those questions that you've mentioned?
The first things I would say is that it's really important for councils to embrace the mindset that your community is an asset that you can work with, and that they can and will rise to the occasion if we give them the opportunity to get their heads around some complex issues. That deliberative engagement isn't about just people coming up with a wish list of unrealistic demands that'll set council up to look bad and fail. It's actually bringing people into a space where they can appreciate the dilemmas, that there are limited resources, that there are competing interests, that there are constraints, that there are challenges. And people are well able to get their heads around that when they're given the opportunity to appreciate that. So the first point I would say is that, and what I've learned is that people do rise to the occasion, and they appreciate the honesty, the transparency about learning about something in more depth before being able to give a very considered judgment. And working that out with other people is a really powerful process. And without fail, I've found organisations are really impressed with just how real, how reasonable and how wise the community can be when they're actually given that opportunity.
Clearly a fantastic resource to draw upon, and you're obviously quite experienced with implementation of the practical strategies needed. As we've discussed, our council staff are familiar with the concept and are now working to address some of the challenges that are arising in their planning, and that is the focus of the upcoming Future Local Government workshop on deliberative engagement. For this one, we are fortunate to be partnering with yourself and also Todd Beavis of IE Community, and we're doing something a little bit different for this workshop. Can you tell us a little bit more about these sessions, Max?
Yeah, we've got two sessions. Part one is around looking at good policy and councillor buy-in, and we think that there's a relationship between those two things quite obviously, because council will need to adopt a policy, and it's their job to be accountable for that policy ultimately being implemented. So part one is exploring what does good policy actually mean and look like in relation to deliberative community engagement, and how might councils engage their councillors in the process of having a sense of ownership and understanding about how deliberative engagement can complement the role of elected representatives rather than undermining it. How can it actually help them do their job better? So that's part one. Part two is looking at obligations of the Act and meeting them. And so in this one, we're going to be looking at some methods and exploring how there are different ways that deliberation can be done. There isn't just one way to do it. There are quite a few options. And different methods. We want to explore that and making clear that there are different methods by which you can actually implement your policy. One of the things about policy and the methods is that we think policy, it's important that it's broad enough that it doesn't actually specify exactly how you do it. It's more explaining why it's important to do it. And the meeting obligations in part 2 is looking at the different ways that deliberation can be done and also how it can be measured, so that you can be confident that it's been done effectively, not just for the purposes of meeting the obligations of the Act, but also being able to demonstrate to the community and also throughout council that this deliberative process has been meaningful and is actually helping to inform really important plans that council need to develop.
Extremely pertinent topics, and we're so fortunate to have both yourself and Todd on board as really valuable resources to draw upon for our council staff when navigating these challenges. So thank you so much for sharing your insights today, and cannot wait to see what you have in store for us in the workshops.
You're welcome. We're really looking forward to being joined by curious and motivated people out there. So we know it'll be a good session.